when he was 25 years old, in the year 75 BC. Few people in Rome could have imagined a world where Gaius Julius Caesar would reign supreme. He was the heir of an aristocratic patrician family that was rich in its ancient lineage, reaching back to the founder Aeneas, but relatively poor in actual money. Caesar had spent his early years following the predetermined path young men of his class were expected to take into a career in the Senate, but he did so without the public fanfare that bolstered the scions of other, more prospering clans. Though charismatic, intelligent, and well-connected, the young Julius Caesar didn't come off as the man of singular driving ambition he would one day become, better known as a pleasure seeker, a light-hearted and amiable man about town. A life absorbed in the turbulent arena of politics and war seemed a far cry. The late 80s BC, when Caesar had come of age as a man in his late teens, had brought dark days upon Rome. Far in Asia Minor, the rebel king Mithridates of Pontus had stirred up war with the Romans, leading to a power struggle in the Senate between two ambitious and ruthless generals who sought the glory of conquering Mithridates, Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Their rivalry exploded into a virtual civil war, as Marius seized control of Rome with his loyal army, established his own leadership, and purged the supporters of Sulla, only for Sulla to return, seize control himself as dictator, and unleash an even bloodier and more systematic purge of his political enemies. The young Julius Caesar, as fate would have it, was closely tied to the general Marius. He was his nephew through one of his aunts, and himself had married Cornelia, the daughter of Lucius Cornelius Cinna, a staunch supporter and successor of Marius before Sulla's own coup d'état. In the years after Sulla's occupation of Rome, as his efforts to eradicate Marius's faction were well underway, suspicion inevitably fell on the young Caesar, whose connections to Marius made him a natural target. And so Caesar hid himself and escaped from Rome, from Italy, and headed east, where he gained his first military experience on the frontiers and spent a protracted stay in the court of King Nicomedes of Bithynia as an envoy in the war against Mithridates. For years, Caesar remained at the fringes of the Roman world, living a life far from the capital city with all its upheaval. But in the year 78, news long hoped for arrived from Rome. The dictator Sulla was dead. No longer under threat of murder, Caesar's future lay open once more, and he at last returned home, sailing the Mediterranean to the land of his birth. After his years in hiding and the lessons he had learned, Caesar renewed his efforts to pursue a political path with more energy than ever, intending to prove himself in the city's public places where careers were made and broken, the forum, the law courts, and eventually the very floor of the Senate. But now he found himself in need of a new skill set, as his road through the ladder of civic offices demanded better practice in the most powerful political art of them all, the art of persuasion. His noble education had already carried him far. He had studied the Greek language and read the works of Greek historians, and he attended lectures on philosophy. But to write and speak well, above all, to wield words like weapons and give life to one's ideas, in a republic that centered debate and building consensus as the very heart of its political practice, it was mighty rhetoric that made men great. And so, in the year 75, Julius Caesar was 25 years old, and embarked once more on a journey east, this time in search of a great teacher, a master of oratory, who could train him in the secrets of public speaking. He was on his way to the island of Rhodes, where he would study under the revered Greek philosopher and rhetorician Apollonius Molo. Caesar knew of Apollonius from an acquaintance of his in Rome, another rising star in the law courts, named Marcus Tullius Cicero, already renowned for his masterfully crafted speeches in defense of high-profile clients. Possessing some natural talent, but yearning to excel in the art of oratory like Cicero, Caesar sailed across the blue Aegean in pursuit of the training that would make him a star in the Roman Forum. But his voyage would take an unexpected turn, for the high seas held not only adventure and promise for the young Caesar, but danger too. On the southeastern coast of Asia Minor, there lay a wild and mountainous region called Cilicia, whose rocky landscape was home to a shoreline full of deep harbors and inlets. The people of Cilicia had learned to live from the sea, generations of expert mariners who built swift ships and made excursions all over the Mediterranean Sea for conquest and plunder. Cilicia was known and feared in the ancient world as the home of pirates, whose colonies hid in the dark ravines outside the reach of any authority but their own. Traversing the waters, the Cilician pirates considered all nations fair game for their hunt, and whatever goods they found passing from port to port along the shores of the Mediterranean, they viewed as lawful spoils. They intercepted the regular shipments of grain from Sicily to the capital in Rome, and plundered fine wares from the wealthy ships of Alexandria in Egypt, which bore gold, jewels, and rare fabrics from the east. And another means of enriching themselves was by ransom. If the pirates were fortunate enough to capture the ships of aristocrats, dignitaries, or officers, they would reap a vast sum of money from bartering their prisoners. And as the young Julius Caesar made his way across the waters toward Rhodes, the ominous sails of a Cilician craft appeared on the horizon, speeding toward his ship. The pirates captured Caesar's vessel near Pharmacusa, a small island in the northeast of the Aegean Sea. His crew and bounteous provisions made clear to the Cilicians that they had seized a fine prize indeed, for they knew well the look and manner of Roman patricians. This would be a grand ransom indeed. The payment for Caesar's freedom needed to be arranged, and it would take time for the money to arrive. So in the meantime, Caesar became a hostage of the pirate band, kept prisoner aboard his ship under the careful watch of his captors. But despite being fully at their mercy, young Caesar's nerve never wavered for a second, and he bore himself up with the self-assurance and dignity and air of superiority that befitted a noble of Rome. He asked the pirates what they demanded for his ransom. They answered 20 talents, an enormous amount of money. But Caesar laughed in their faces and told them they obviously had no idea who he was. He was surely worth at least 50, so that was the sum he would allow them to be paid. He sent away his attendants to the shore with orders to visit particular cities where the ransom could be assembled from family connections, and Caesar remained with the Cilicians, keeping only a doctor and 2 servants at his side. At first, his proud attitude amused the pirates, and gradually they came to admire his pluck. But by the end of the whole ordeal, with the greatest confidence and subtlety, Caesar had succeeded in practically bending the pirates to his will. When he wanted to sleep, if he decided they were too noisy, he sent them orders to quiet down. He joined them in their fun and sports on the deck, directing everything as if he were their leader, and beating them in their own games. Keeping sharp his rhetorical skills, he wrote speeches and poems that he read aloud to them, and if his test audience of pirates didn't seem to appreciate the exquisite quality of his work, he told them that they were fools who had no taste, and added, by way of apology, that he shouldn't expect too much from barbarians like them. One night, in jest, the pirates asked their captive what Caesar would do if there were ever a day when he would take them prisoner. And Caesar answered them plainly, that he would crucify each and every one. At last, Caesar's former crew returned from the land with the ransom money in tow. The handsome fee was handed over to the pirates, who, true to their agreement, sent Caesar and his attendants safely away in a little boat, where they could set ashore at the coast of Asia Minor and make their way from there. Caesar was free again, and had no more need to think of the kidnappers. But despite that, he was not a man to be trifled with. There was more work to be done before heading on to Rhodes. He took his men straight away to the port of Miletus, a major city, and there he reported his capture to the authorities, personally assembled a fleet, and again set out to sea to track the pirates down. Keeping in mind where they had dropped anchor, Caesar led the fleet straight to the spot, and found the captors there, right where he'd left them. The pirates were caught by complete surprise, still busy dividing up their latest heap of plunder, and their ships were easily seized. Caesar had all of them imprisoned to be brought back to shore, and for good measure, he took back all the ransom money his family and friends had paid. His captors, now themselves the captives of Caesar, were carried back to the mainland, where justice would be done. And true to his word, Caesar would crucify them all. But still, after his long days as their prisoner, he respected what resemblance of hospitality they had shown him, so he would show them a bit of mercy in return. Instead of an agonizing, long death on the cross, he ordered their throats to be cut, and after a faster demise, their bodies were nailed high, a grim warning to any who followed a pirate's life, and any who dared cross the likes of Gaius Julius Caesar.